What up, gang? How we doing? Andrew Cooper here, aka Coop a Fiasco on the Twitter machine. This is Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. And guess what, folks? We have been hitting the FFPC streets all year long, doing the weekly challenges, doing the playoff challenge, and lucky for us, they created another challenge. They created a second chance challenge over at FFPC. So if you missed the first one, if you didn't get involved before, use promo code COOP over there. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more at myffpc.com. And you can get involved with us. What we're doing today is we're getting in that challenge. And who better to do it with than my boy Theo Gremminger over at PlayerProfiler, a guy that I go way back with. We've been chopping it up on the airways for a long time. So without further ado, Matt, behind the glass, why don't you bring him out? Bring out our buddy. Theo, what's up, dude?
I'm ready. I'm so stoked. All right, Coop, you were so sharp last week, but it's like these playoff contests are so tricky. You came on my podcast, and I was just thinking about it all week long. How you're like, we're talking over Fantasy Alarm, and we're talking about how Aaron Jones is the Cowboys killer. Should we consider him? And of course, we didn't. And anybody with Aaron Jones in their lineup is feeling like they're super dangerous right now with the 3 touchdown performance, and it's just how he looked. And when he started off, when he scored that first touchdown, I'm like, Coop, man, Coop. I was just thinking
We're there. And you know what, though? I actually have to give credit to the we have a lot of Cowboys fans, both affiliated with Fantasy Alarm and in the chat hanging out. So, Britt Flynn is a Cowboys fan. Jack Sensen in the chat, he knows the deal, right? He's got the Cowboys Grateful Dead right on there. Chris Sellers was also in the chat saying, hey, by the way, Aaron Jones carves us up every time. So we kind of had some inside information from the Cowboys. That's the funny thing is that, like, when you're a fan of a team, you not only know who's good on your team, you can be a little more realistic about it if you are a realistic person. You got to put the homerism aside, but you not only know who the good players are and who kills you. We got Hal in the chat. Hal's a big Lions fan, so we got the inside scoop, man. Theo, who is your favorite team, or are you just fully unbiased robot?
I'm like a sicko fantasy person now. I grew up in Washington D.C. and I was a big Washington Redskins at the time. Then obviously Washington football team, and now Washington Commanders. But it's been like over the years, like a slow drip. Coop, I think it's like, the gateway drug to not caring about your NFL team is when you stop wanting to watch your team and you start getting like really annoyed when there's not a red zone option. Dude. So I sit back and I watch red zone and I don't worry. And I think I've had some people in my family who are Commanders fans. Some are Raiders fans just from like way back in the day. But for me now, I'm completely agnostic, and I have kids, and I'm not trying to steer them in any direction. I live on Long Island, and my son, who wants football jerseys, I buy him stars. And I'm like, you can figure out your team at a later date. He kind of likes the Jets, but he's got Lamar Jackson. He's got Patrick Mahomes. He wants Josh Allen, CJ Stroud. Like, that's how kids are these days. So I'm
always like that. I always like that. I'll tell you what, I do have a lot of Patriots jerseys, right? But we had stars. So I have like a Gronk, a Welker. I have Tom Brady. But I mean, even as a Patriots fan, I have a Thurman Thomas jersey. I have a Calvin Johnson jersey, right? Like, I'm a fan of the game. And I think that's the way to do it. And it's so funny that having the game on the TV, that resonates with me, because I was always the Patriots on the big TV. I'm a multiple TV guy. Patriots on the big TV, Red Zone, the other TV guy during the Tom Brady era. As of late, it's moved from Patriots big TV to the little TV. And now at this stage, depending on what else is on, they're on the iPad. And there's whatever the best fantasy game is on the other TV. So yeah, we're getting that way, dude. So but yeah, I mean, good to know. Always good to know where people's allegiance are. But with this, we have to be unbiased, and we're going to go into this and be unbiased. I want to ask you, before we get into the games today, did you have a chance to check up on the team that we drafted, how we're looking? Because I know we didn't have some of the megastars, but I think we're doing all right.
No? We're not dead, but we're not like, we'll see, because we have a Lamar Jackson build. You really can't get too emotional. You can't get too emotional when you have your quarterback position kind of off from the first week. I have one team in the $35 contest that's doing pretty well. But I didn't go crazy with the entries this year, so it's kind of like, I kind of wish I did. I wish I sprinkled a little bit more because of the, like the Aaron Jones situation. But yeah, it's you'll see the separation this week, because you're going to see a lot of we have Christian McCaffrey, we have Lamar Jackson. If those two guys come out and play like we think they can, we have Puka Nacua in our lineup, so we had that like really, really good heads up. And a lot of those Kyron Williams teams, the Kyron over Puka decision, especially when you got one game out of the Rams, is really going to resonate with a lot of people. So you really see a little bit more after this week.
Yeah, I have one team that's currently ranked 352 in the $200 challenge, and that's with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. So no quarterback points. So I'm feeling good. The thing is, I could have used Tyreek over Devon Achane in that one, and I'd be feeling, you know what I mean? Like, so I know I probably can't win the whole thing, or maybe with one of my other teams, but I'm feeling good about that one. I mean, I did get a lot of the stars in there. Hey, but enough about those teams. That's already done, dude. We have a second chance, right? So go over to my FFPC. They have a $200 and $35 challenge available. I don't know. How do you want to do this one today? We could either pull up the grid now and have it up on the screen the whole time and kind of throw players in there, or we could go through and hit on the games, pull players aside, and then pull it up at the end. And I'll say, hey, you know what? Here's a list of players. We're like, what do you want to do, Theo? You do
whatever you're comfortable. I think we did it last time where we tried doing it that way, but then we end up just pulling it up on the screen anyway after a couple of minutes because we want to jam that one in. Right. So
I say we just pull it up, dude.
Your home court, man. You set the rules.
That's true. Yeah, I do set the rules. So let's pull it up. We got the team that I already put the team in. I set us all up because Billy Muzio now twice has been invited to hang out with us on your channel and my channel. Our team is aptly named Muzio is a dork. So that's the squad for this one. And I truly, truly hope we win. So that's the name at the very top of the leaderboard. That would be poetic, man.
We had John Daigle on First Class Fantasy yesterday, and I was busting Billy's chops. I'm like, Coop, we had such a good show last week, and Daigle's like, yeah, I was talking about like the FFPC builds, and Billy, I'm like, now you can't come on Coop's show tomorrow, like just busting his chops. It was very funny.
You got
some shout outs.
You got to, yeah, hell yeah. And Daigle's the man, dude. He came on our show earlier this year. He's a great guy. So okay, let's get into it. For first game on the slate here, Saturday, 4:30 p.m. We've got Texans at Ravens. 9-point spread in favor of the Ravens. What I'm seeing, let me know with these. Let me know if you see anything differently. I know there's obviously a lot of different books, but what I'm seeing, 9-point spread, 43.5 point over under. So big favorites for the Ravens here. And the interesting thing that I want to point out right away is that a lot of the books, when you have quarterbacks with the passing touchdown props, you see, a lot of times it will be set at 1.5. Very rarely is it set at like 2.5, but then you'll see, like the average quarterback, it'll be 1.5 touchdowns, and the line will be around -100, right, or somewhere close to even. All the quarterbacks are favored to throw more than 2 touchdowns, except CJ Stroud. He's actually +150 last I was seeing. So they're really thinking that the CJ Stroud we've seen gets kind of lassoed here. What are your thoughts on it? For this, I'm a little scared, but I kind of want. I mean, I already did bet a little money on the over.
So it's a funny game because Baltimore's been sitting back in the weeds, and I predicted Cleveland would beat Houston. I was incredibly wrong on that. Houston played inspired. The back-to-back pick sixes, Stroud looking fantastic. But what's funny is the line is almost the same from the last time these two teams played, and Houston was the public perception of Houston back then was like they are not very good, and now it's kind of like they're great. So I think it's funny, Baltimore is getting a lot of credit, I think, because Vegas, I think, expects them to kind of shut down Houston. And like you said, with the CJ Stroud passing prop, you kind of see it right there. But that Ravens defense has just been so good. It's really difficult finding edges against that Ravens defense.
Right.
They're strong against the running back position, only 5 rushing touchdowns allowed all year. They've been strong against wide receivers, and they're very, very strong against tight ends. It's very balanced. It's hard to find that edge. They're just solid everywhere.
Yeah, they're insane because they're using these split defenses that people are talking about these days, where it's like they're not just running cover 3 or cover 1, or they're running a cover 6 where half the field is cover 2 and half the field is cover 4, and it's really confusing for quarterbacks, especially a rookie quarterback. That is my one concern, is that they're doing some stuff that you just don't. A team is usually like, okay, this is a cover 2 team, that's a cover 3 team. This team is doing some crazy stuff, man. Kyle Hamilton is such a smart player, the way that he's picked up this ridiculous scheme. So it could be difficult here. For those now just joining us or just catching up with what's going on, we're doing an FFPC team. The setup here is that there's 8 teams left. In the early one that we did, the main event, you basically pick 12 players. So you're going to have 2 teams you don't pick anybody on, and you do a kicker and defense where you're fading. In this case, there's really no fading. You just want to pick like the best possible players from each team and have players going deep for the teams you think are going to win. So for this one, we're not predicting an upset, right, Theo? For us, we're going to
go. No, I think it's Baltimore.
Okay. So the question of the day, and this is the problem that I run into with Baltimore, is for game theory wise, people are going to look at Baltimore and they're not going to want to use some of these other players, right? They're probably not going to want to use Gus or Justice Hill, right? Zay Flowers, maybe. So to me, it's do we use Lamar Jackson or do we use Isaiah Likely?
So I think that there's going to be a ton of chalk, especially in the second chance contest on Lamar Jackson and later on Christian McCaffrey. I think those 2 guys are going to be the chalk. I think that the interesting one is Likely, and Houston's actually been very generous against opposing tight ends this year.
Yeah.
I think Likely would be your pivot, but again, it's a little bit more of like a threading the needle type thing, which is kind of what you need to do in a contest of this size. So, if you're feeling some Lamar Jackson, I could do it, but it kind of limits our build. Whereas Isaiah Likely, I think there's actually going to be more Zay Flowers teams than there will be Isaiah Likely teams. I think that the fear of Mark Andrews coming back.
So they just announced. Here's the thing. So then this is why I kind of like Likely is actually within the last hour, it was announced that Mark Andrews is not going to be activated. So
I saw that one, but if Baltimore wins,
if they win, so that's exactly it. And this is, I was going to tweet something on that if you already picked Isaiah Likely, you're rooting for the Ravens to lose this week, right? Like, yes. So if you made one already and it's already locked and you have Likely, the best case situation is he goes off and the Ravens lose because then Mark Andrews never comes into play. But you're right. If we think the Ravens are going to win, you don't pick Likely. In fact, I think the only reason you would pick Likely or Flowers is if you think they're going to lose either this week or next week.
Yeah.
Because if you go to the Super Bowl with Likely, I don't know. He would have to really turn into a megastar, whereas we're kind of just trying to sneak by on tight end premium,
It's almost if you're projecting you're going to get 3 games out of Lamar Jackson and a Super Bowl run for the Ravens, for the Ravens to make the Super Bowl, then you kind of have to go Lamar. But again, it really limits us. But Coop, on the flip side, we don't love the quarterbacks out of the NFC right now as much. And when you start looking at who's going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, if you're saying Detroit, Goff is probably still not your play. And if you're saying San Francisco, we're still going to probably want to lean with McCaffrey or Kittle or one of the explosive skill position players. So it's difficult. First of all, who's going to win? Let's back it up. Now you have a 1 week of the playoffs under your belt. Who are we going to project to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC? I think we can just kind of build our team with that. Because if you think it's not going to be Baltimore, then let's go Likely. If you think it's going to be Baltimore, then we should just go Lamar.
Yeah, I kind of think it's going to be Baltimore. Let's hold off on that for now, and let's just pick our Texan, and then we'll move on to another game. Right. So we're not going to pick C.J. Stroud because we don't want to. Again, if we were going to be making like 10 lineups, then I think having a C.J. Stroud lineup out of 10, the 10% player, I think would be interesting. But if we're just going to make one, I don't think we're going to go with Stroud. So it's going to be Nico Collins, Devin Singletary, or Dalton Schultz. I'm not sure I really love Schultz here going up against the Ravens. Even last week going up against a tough Cleveland team, he bailed himself out by having a touchdown, but he only caught one pass, right? Luckily, it was a long touchdown.
I think that Nico Collins is going to be chalk, but like we talk about, like when we met last week, and I'm sure you did with your other guests, it's kind of like there's a difference between chalk and appropriate chalk you don't want to miss out on.
Yeah. We got it easier. Good chalk, bad chalk.
Good chalk. That's that's why they pay you the big bucks.
That's right, dude. We play a little good chalk, bad chalk.
Keeping it real.
I got to give John and Pembroke credit for that. John and Pembroke credit for the good chalk, bad chalk. But it makes it a lot easier because we can say, you know what, Nico Collins the chalk, he's a good chalk, right?
He's a good chalk, and also a lot of YOLO balls. If they get behind early, you're going to see Nico Collins get 12 targets or something crazy, and some downfield targets. So, like, you could twist my arm into Devin Singletary.
Nah.
I think he could also be useful, but your ceiling is so much lower. So I think it's Nico. Nico's got to be your Texan.
Yeah, I think so too. And if this game were like, I don't mind picking the running back if the spread were like, I don't know, 2 points, 3 points. But when a team's expected to lose by like 10, then it's very hard to pick the running back. Running is the luxury of the winning team in most cases, So yeah, we're gonna go. We'll pivot. We'll stay off a Singletary here. All right, let's go to the next game. Next game here is going to be Saturday night, 8:20 p.m. night game. Green Bay at San Francisco. The 49ers are 9.5-point favorites. I thought I saw this open at like 6. It looks like it's actually, sorry, maybe I was thinking about the Buccaneers game. So this one did open and stay relatively close to 9 or 9.5. So in this one, are we going to try and buck the trend and go Packers, or what do you think?
No, I just think it's a buzzsaw. I love Green Bay. I think if it matched up with Green Bay against Detroit, I think they'd have much more of a chance in Detroit this weekend. But it just seems like in San Francisco, you have the whole recency, Vegas, I think, is going to make some money on this one because there's a lot of recency bias. People watched Green Bay hang 48 on Dallas in Dallas, but it was kind of like a perfect storm after that Alexander interception early, where like the wheels just fell off Dallas at that point. And I think that this is one where you give San Francisco a week to prepare. We have to step back and say Green Bay, although they were red hot to end the year, this is still a team that was 9-8 in the regular season. This is still going to be Jordan Love's second road playoff performance. But it's, the emotional high of beating Dallas in Dallas has got to catch up with a team this young. Right. So many young players on Green Bay on the offensive side of the ball. It's just a big task. And also, I think that Purdy will be tight with everything. I think Shanahan and Purdy are not going to put themselves in a situation to turn the ball over. I think it's going to be very efficient offense from San Francisco with also pressure on Jordan Love with the pass rush. And I don't know if Green Bay's offensive line is going to be able to hold up to that pass rush for the whole entire game.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I tweeted something the other day about if you add up all the contracts for Watson, Reed, Dubs, Wicks, Kraft, and Musgrave for next year, their cap hits. And you can even throw in Bo Melton and Malik Heath, who are on very cheap deals. It's actually a smaller cap hit than just Allen Lazard for
That's
the Jets.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's wild. It's on there. If you combine them all, even Malik Heath and Bo Melton, it's under $13 million, right? Which is like that. I mean, some of these guys, the cap hit for some of these wide receivers, no joke, next year is $30 or $40 million, right? Like some of these, Keenan Allen's is like $40 million. They got to do something, obviously, to keep him around. So like, it's ridiculous that not only do they have all these guys under contract for next year, but most of them through 2025 as well. Obviously, anybody drafted within that last 2 years, which includes Reed, Musgrave, Kraft, Wicks, like they're all good through 2025 as well. So Watson, like it's nuts, man. So
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And we also we criticize Brian Gutekunst for like years and years for failing to address the wide receiver position. And the last 2 years, they've killed it. So many hits. Every single guy's a hit. Like, the Wicks pick, the Romeo Dubs pick, and both tight ends can play. So they not to let alone Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, who had multiple wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 weeks as rookies. It's crazy how deep they are of dudes in 2 draft classes. It feels like they're like one player away from taking like a really big step forward next year.
Well, let me ask you, is there a possibility that maybe these guys aren't necessarily all really good, or some of them are megastars, or is there a possibility that maybe Jordan Love is actually just really, really good? And in a vacuum, maybe these guys aren't all amazing.
I think a little bit of both. I think like Jordan Love is really, really good. We moved him up at the dynasty rankings at Player Profiler this week, and he keeps
How'd you move him? Where'd you move him?
I'm standing for him. I'll ask you this one: who are you taking, Justin Fields or Jordan Love in Dynasty?
Jordan Love, dude.
Easily.
Justin Fields,
So,
he's on a very dangerous path. He's on a path right now that led Terrell Pryor to 1,000-yard receiving season.
Like, 1,000,000%.
You go to one other team. Honestly, if I'm the team that is like, let's say they do draft Caleb Williams and Justin Fields is going to be moved. If I'm the team that's making that move, I'm speaking to him and his agent, and I'm saying, hey, you know what? This is your second chance. How much of a team player are you willing to be? Because we're about to give up draft capital for you, and we need to know what the floor is. We think you're a tremendous athlete. Like, are you the kind of guy that's going to be a Tim Tebow type and say, hey, you know what? I'm a quarterback. I'm not playing fullback. I'm not playing tight end. I'm playing quarterback or I'm doing nothing. Or are you going to be the type of team player where if it doesn't work out with you as a quarterback and we have you under contract, are you willing to play wide receiver? Are you willing to be a gadget player? Are you willing to return kicks? Like, I want to know what this guy is made of if I'm trading a second-round pick for that guy, if I'm trading a first-round pick for that guy. Because here's the thing. 1,000-yard season from Terrell Pryor, that was actually a pretty valuable – I mean, how many wide receivers ever have a 1,000-yard season? So I'd actually be more willing to grab this player knowing, hey, you know what? What if, right? I mean, Ryan Tannehill used to play wide receiver in college. When the Titans made a move for that guy, you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to get a football player. Look at Taysom Hill. Right? Like, he is a valuable football player, no matter how you slice it. So, it's an interesting thought, and you'll find out what kind of a guy he is too.
Yeah.
With that question alone, where he says, nope, I'm a quarterback, and you say, okay, you know what? Well, maybe in that case, we're not that interested. We're looking for football players. We're looking for teammates. So
yeah, we have sort of a disconnect because I think, we always think in fantasy terms, but just in real life NFL, he's 10-28 as a starter. And you can blame like the exigent circumstances and the team situation. And certainly there were multiple offensive coordinators, but the guy just doesn't win. But back to Love, so if you pass the Justin Fields test, which we do, then that already puts him in that low end QB1, high end QB2 range. Then you start having conversations about Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, all sorts of guys like this. You can have a conversation about Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence if we have one more year of sample size. So we're starting to creep up for Jordan Love here in terms of dynasty value. And then in redraft value, the guy was quarterback 5 on the season, had 30 touchdown passes, had multiple rushing scores, QB5, and right behind the blue bloods. It was Lamar, Hurts, Allen, Dak, then Love. And now, Coop, he has 3 touchdown passes on 21 attempts last week in Dallas. And, Dallas played very poorly on defense, but still, for a guy in his first playoff game to go and do that, Jordan Love's really, really good.
Right. And you have to look at it in terms of, because people, I see people on my timeline and they're like, oh, yeah, Davis Mills threw for a bunch of 300 yards and 3 touchdown games. Well, there's differences, right? For instance, Davis Mills he was a 3rd round pick. Right. The best 3rd round picks over the last 40 years in terms of fantasy football are Russell Wilson, who is obviously he's a hit. The second best one in terms of fantasy points over the last 40 years is Matt Schaub. No joke. Or Chris Chandler. I mean, depending how you want to look at it, not good players, dude. So the odds are stacked against those players. This is a 1st round pick, right? And he's also winning. So when you go to the playoffs, who realized that this year is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray said, hey, you know what? I got to get back on the field and win some games so that we don't have the 1st round pick. I need to take that off the table. Davis Mills didn't do that. That's why Davis Mills is gone. Desmond Ridder didn't do that. These 3rd round pick guys like that, forget about it. That's why with a guy like Love, they seem committed to him now. I'm in. I might even be willing to rank him ahead of Purdy. As crazy as that sounds.
I think I'm there. I like Brock Purdy a lot. But I think I'm there with Jordan Love. It's certainly if you take away the parts, if you put, Jaden Reed and Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks and Musgrave and Kraft, and then swapped out Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo and traded skill position players, let alone having a healthy Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield all year. What Purdy did was super impressive, but Love is doing this with it's just incredible. There's no veteran presence, and he missed Aaron Jones for a large portion of the year as well.
Right. So who honestly within the passing game, the very first game of the year, he had that 50-yard touchdown reception. Those guys pad the stats. And I'll tell you what, the other thing for Purdy for Dynasty that concerns me is you have to when I think about quarterbacks, it's so crazy the different thought process that goes in for dynasty and stuff like that. And Theo, we're gonna do a bunch of dynasty podcasts this offseason. I'm gonna have you on.
1,000,000%.
Right. But you got to think about because we'll get back to FFPC in a minute, but you got to think about the blame game that goes on to the top, right? So if the wheels fall off a team, right? There's three guys that get blamed, and one of them gets the axe, and then the next guy does after. It's the GM, it's the coach, and it's the quarterback, right? So once the things start going badly, they look around and say, okay, where's the shakeup? Do we fire the coach? Do we move on from the quarterback, right? And the problem that you run into with the 49ers is if at some point the wheels fall off and they look around and say, we have the best running back, we have the best left tackle, we have the best, all these guys, we like Shanahan, we like the GM. It's like, where's the blame? Where's the axe fall? And that's my concern for Brock Purdy is that if they don't win the Super Bowl, then they might look around and say, oh, well, maybe Brock Purdy all along was just Alex Smith, who was able to have a bunch of seasons with 12 wins and 14 wins with the Chiefs. So that is my concern there. I don't think for sure that's going to happen, because they could just be good for a long time. So, but anyway, let's get back to the FFPC.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we could do that. See, this is the problem when I have you on, Theo, is that we could talk ball in a million directions. So for this game, we think that the Packers are going to lose, which gives us the near impossible task of picking a singular Packer. And in this event, we can kind of pick anybody we want because anybody's capable of having one good game and a loss.
So you've tried to find an edge. You try to find an edge, and the edge usually would be a wide receiver against San Francisco rather than a running back. I look at like the Baltimore loss, and Zay Flowers gets 13 targets, catches 9 passes, scores a touchdown, had like a big impactful fantasy game. Tyler Lockett had one solid game against San Francisco. I could go wide receiver here. I think that's probably the move to make, even though there's like ambiguity with it. But Aaron Jones, you have to think if it's a tight game, they're going to lean on Aaron Jones as much as they can in this sort of environment on the road, even though they're difficult to run against. I think you see a little bit more of Aaron Jones as a receiver in this game, just with how, he looked so effective and the fact that he missed some time this year and now the offense is kind of pivoting to an Aaron Jones offense. So I could go both ways here, Coop. I think that Jones will actually be the chalk because people are just going to ride the 3 touchdown game last week. If we can nail the correct wide receiver, that would be great. We went Jaden Reed last week, and he ends up with 3 targets and no catches.
No catches, brutal.
But that doesn't mean it's not a Jaden Reed week this week.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the play. I think maybe because we want to have – the thing is he's also in a vacuum, he's been the best guy. He's been the chalk. You know what I mean? So I think that actually gives us an advantage for, in my opinion, picking the best wide receiver and also having people be off him because he had a down game last week. I don't want to go with the tight end, even though it's set in premium, because Musgrave, Kraft getting ramped up. It's just, there's no need. There's so many good tight ends. We could put 4 tight ends in this lineup if we want.
No, we absolutely could.
Yeah. I should go Reed. I think we're going to have trouble. Honestly, I always have trouble even finding running backs to pick. So I think maybe we should just go with the good chalk of CMC.
Yeah. I think we just go CMC because if you miss on CMC and he has a CMC game or 2, then you're done. Even if you pick the correct quarterback. And even if like George Kittle would be the argument, because I think George Kittle, we saw the success Jake Ferguson had last week. But the game flow obviously helped with that. But it feels like it could be a Kittle game. Daigle and Billy also liked Kittle yesterday when we discussed it a little bit. But if we don't use Christian McCaffrey here and they make the Super Bowl, we're going to hate it because you're going to miss out on a ton of fantasy points. And Kittle, I think there's a chance he gives you 2 good games. McCaffrey could give you 3 smash games.
Yeah. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, if you take every player in the history of football and sort the players by fantasy points per game, PPR points per game, Christian McCaffrey is 2 on the list.
He's on the Mount Rushmore.
And you know who's number 1 on the list?
Let me guess. I'm going to say LaDainian Tomlinson.
No, he's 7.
Okay. Jamal Charles.
So this includes quarterbacks, but it's not a quarterback.
Oh, okay.
But Patrick Mahomes is 3. You're not going to guess the name. It's a trick question.
Okay, go for it.
So the name is James Brim. It's a guy who...
He's not a real dude.
He's real. He played 3 games during the lockout and and went off. So technically, if you narrow it down to guys that played more than 3 games, Christian McCaffrey is the number 1 all-time fantasy player points per game.
Shout out to James Brim though.
Shout out to James Brim, dude. He doesn't get
for him.
He doesn't get enough attention. But to your point, LaDainian Tomlinson. If you take all the quarterbacks out, LaDainian Tomlinson would be 3. Yeah, go ahead and try and guess 2. It's another running back.
I said Jamal Charles, so I know that's not correct.
It's not Jamal Charles.
It's not Adrian Peterson because he didn't catch enough passes. Coop, I'm stumped.
All-time legend, older player. Well, I'll put it this way.
It's not Barry Sanders, is it?
It's not Barry Sanders, or it's not and it's not Walter Payton. He's like the old-timey king.
Eric Dickerson?
Close. You're gonna kick yourself when I say this name.
OJ Simpson?
No.
Okay, go for it.
Jim Brown.
Okay, so I do feel like an idiot right now.
Yeah. Just think I thought I could get you with like old-timey king or like you know what I mean? He's just like Jim Brown, super megastar, 1957 to 1965. Dude averaged 20 PPR points per game. Yeah, Angelo in the chat got it, dude. Jim Brown. So, yeah, we can't use Jim Brown in the lineup. We're going to use Christian McCaffrey. We're going to use Jaden Reed, and that's it for this game. So we can move on to the next one. Next game here, Buccaneers at Lions. Now we're on Sunday, 3 o'clock. I like this. This is great. 3 o'clock and 6:35 for start times, Theo.
I love it.
That's beautiful,
I love it.
Right?
It's fantastic.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, because I'm an East Coast guy. The vast majority of the country lives on the East Coast. Starting games at 8 o'clock. I mean, I have no problem with it on Saturday. I honestly have no problem with it on any day, but I know people out there that, as JJ Zachariason likes to say, the East Coast dads, starting those late games can be a pain. So
I'm all about that East Coast bias. I live on Long Island. You live in Boston. It's like, come on, man. We make it easy on us. Those West Coast people already have a weird football outlook because they are used to 10 a.m. a Sunday NFL game. So it's like, what? So, think about us.
I'll tell you, I went for my bachelor party. We went to Arizona and we started the day in the pool, Bloody Marys, watching football at 10 in the morning. And then we went to the Cardinals and the Cardinals-Rams game, which was actually a later game there. So it was like, 1 o'clock or whatever. I'll tell you what, by the time I got out to the bar that night, it wasn't good, dog.
You're ready to go to sleep. You're ready to go to sleep. Yeah.
I was a monster. I was a gremlin. You pour a little Red Bull vodka on that gremlin, man, it was bad news. So, yeah, you got to be very careful on the West Coast with the 10 a.m. games.
And what are you tailgating at like 8 in the morning?
Yeah, we skipped the tailgate. We did our own. We basically just hung in the pool and watched football. And then when it was game time, we just shot over and went right into the game because we got an Airbnb close. Like my boys set it up the right way, but you got to hydrate, dude. You got to mix in some waters if you're going to try and do a full West Coast day of football. Let me tell you what.
100%.
Yeah. So but no, I love it. They're 3 and 6. So 3 o'clock we have Bucks Lions. And again, Lions are favored 6.5. This one we could try and make a move here, but I feel like we shouldn't use either quarterback from this game, which opens us up to doing whatever we want because then it doesn't matter who wins, right?
Well, chalk is going to be the sun god. Amon-Ra St. Brown, chalk, easy.
Sure.
And chalk is still probably, despite dropping a deep one, that could have scored a touchdown on last week in Evans. Evans, I think, will still be the chalk. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong, but you could pivot here to Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is really appealing in a home game. I'm always trying to lean Gibbs in these sort of things. It's hard to get away from the sun god. First of all, we get the Bucks out of the way.
Right.
Do you want to stand for Godwin or Rachaad White? Because I think they'll be very low roster percentages.
I want to use Evans or Rachaad White. I don't think Cade Otton repeats. Chris Godwin, he doesn't have the single game upside that Mike Evans does.
Agreed.
So I want to use either Evans or White. On the Lions side, I could even potentially use Laporta because it's tight end premium. So I don't know. Again, we need another running back at some point. So I honestly think maybe what we should do is come back to the Lions.
Yeah, come back to the Lions because
I think we should revisit the Lions, but we should pick a Buccaneer.
So I think that we both like Mike Evans, and I think that it's quote unquote due. And the only scenario you have in your head where Tampa Bay wins this game on the road is Mike Evans going off, and I think we've got to chase that upside.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I agree with you. Like, this is going to be a more of a traditional Mike Evans, like what we saw during the season game, than last week.
He should have had such a better game too.
Yeah.
Anybody watch that game? Like he caught, it's like, oh man. Same with Kelsey. Like there were a few guys. Like Kelsey got 10 targets and dropped 3 of them, but he caught 7 for 71.
Yeah.
Like Mike Evans dropped that one. He does that too all the time, doesn't he? Like if Mike Evans caught every really bad drop in his career, he'd be the greatest wide receiver of all time.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
He's so but he's good. The thing is, when he does it at this stage, it doesn't even faze me. I'm just like, you guys have to take that because that happens every once in a while with him. But man,
love Evans though.
I know, me too. And like, I don't even blame him anymore. It's just like part of his profile that he's going to have a bad drop at some point. That one that he should have caught that one. That would have been a 30, 40-yard touchdown.
It would have been a massive play for every lineup with Mike Evans.
Which is like all of mine.
And then you get the Godwin one where they literally just throw it up in the air on like it was just so great. It was, I don't know if you saw they have the video of Baker mic'd up. So he's like, Godwin, be ready. Just throws it up to him or something.
Just be ready. Awesome. Yeah. And then did you see him celebrating in the end zone? They had him mic'd up through the whole thing.
Baker is it's amazing. The whole story with Baker is just incredible. And how about this one, Coop? I talked with Daigle and Muzio yesterday. Is if I told you in 2021, if I was like 3 years from now, you're going to have Baker Mayfield versus Jared Goff in a huge playoff game, you would laugh in my face.
Right.
And Baker last year goes and plays for 2 teams, gets off the plane and plays for the Rams, plays for Carolina, and now he's like, it's like swaggy Baker is back.
Right.
He's like, it's really awesome.
If you go back like 7 years though and say it, then everyone would be like, yeah, of course. Both first round picks, it's like everybody liked them, right? When they were the Rams and the Browns. So it's funny how the perceptions changed, dude. But yeah, here we are.
It's awesome.
It's just, I love that he has literal memes in his head. For anyone that missed the clip, he turns to, before the snap, he goes, "Chris, be ready." And then he throws it up to Chris. And then when he runs down to the end zone to celebrate with Godwin, he literally says, Godwin down there somewhere, which is an actual meme, dude. Like it's so good, man.
Baker's awesome.
I love when guys are having fun out there, man. So it's just so much easier to root for him than like a Russell Wilson who's like, he acts like he's running for president. It's just like, dude,
it's very guarded in every mannerism.
Chill out, dude.
Yeah,
like
relax.
It's a game. Have some fun, dude. So okay, so we're gonna go Mike Evans. We're gonna hold off on the Lions. Let's get to I think this last game is gonna sort out a lot for us.
Yeah,
it's gonna sort out a lot. So last game here, Sunday, 6:35. Chiefs at Bills, 2.5 spread in favor of the Bills at home. They once again have said that they expect a lot of snow, and they're requesting people to come and help shovel out the stadium, though. I saw something, Theo, not sure if you saw that. They already said in advance they're not going to have food and drinks for people that are shoveling. Like,
it's a weird vibe.
Terry Pagula has a lot of money, does he not? Like, doesn't he own the Bills and the Sabres? He can't afford a couple sandwiches, dude.
Get some buffalo wings. Be on brand.
For real,
yeah.
Dude. Seriously. Yeah. I mean, like, how hard is it to have like some snacks, bro?
Free labor. They just want free labor, but they're not offering.
Which they're going to get it. They're going to get it too.
The people in Buffalo. So Mike Shope, who I know you know as well. So Mike Shope is like my favorite voice for Buffalo Bills everything. Hosts the Deep End, and he will say that like a lot of the players kind of live in the area near the stadium, and their neighbors will just show up and like shovel their driveways and shovel them out.
That's sick.
It's like a community with all these Buffalo Bills in that Orchard Park area. It's super cool. It's kind of like Green Bay in a sense.
Right.
It's funny because it's such a snow culture there. But yeah, it's gonna be crazy. We're gonna get some snow here on Long Island this weekend too, but up there it's gonna be a lot. And it's just like every week now we're getting snow games. Why didn't they build an indoor stadium up there like way back in the day? Could have been like Detroit.
Because they thought it was an advantage.
Yeah,
100%. And then now that it's basically been proven that that Josh Allen's better not in the snow.
Yeah.
Then now it's not an advantage. So kind of funny how that happens, man. Yeah, they should. And I think I actually saw a report from Sal Cappuccio. Sorry if I butchered the name. He goes on like he goes on now with Pat McAfee. At one point, he was on with us. Just want to get that out there. We had Sal on here, but he basically said that they're pretty committed to that idea, even still. That if they do build a stadium, a new stadium, it wouldn't even have a retractable roof. It would just be a partial cover roof. Like they want that still. They would basically, the idea is they would cover the fans, so the fans wouldn't have to deal with it, but they still want to have that element. So I don't know, kind of weird.
Partial cover sounds pretty good though, compared to like what you're seeing in some of these games.
Now. Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we got Chiefs at Bills. I guess the question of the day is, do we want to use a quarterback from this game? Because based on where we've gone, if we don't use a quarterback from this game, we're going to use Lamar Jackson.
So here's my thing: if you're on Buffalo winning this game, then Josh Allen becomes a real thing.
I don't want to pick it, Theo. I don't want to pick a winner. I know I'm supposed to and I have to. I don't want to.
The other play here, if we want to be picking, like being agnostic to having to pick the winner in a game that could be coming down right to the wire, is James Cook fried them last time they played. He had 5 catches for 83 yards, ran for like 60 more, had a receiving touchdown. And then last year, Devin Singletary had a similar game where it's less explosion, but gave you receiving and rushing upside when they played. But this, it's eons ago, but it's still Bills Chiefs. But I just look at James Cook, due for a game. We need a running back. If it's not a Josh Allen team, I like using a James Cook in this situation. You get the running back spot done. But if you think like Buffalo, like I like Buffalo's chances more in Baltimore than I would Kansas City's. I think there's a better chance that it would be Buffalo winning next week. I don't know. It's more just vibes than anything. I could see Kansas City going into Baltimore and just really struggling this time around. So this is why this game is everything, Coop, and you gotta pick it.
Right. And I think that the conservative play is to just pick non-quarterback stars, knowing that whoever goes on, you're all right. Right. Because like at the end of the day, picking the right quarterback is key. I have a ton of Josh Allen teams, and I still have one. I did make one Patrick Mahomes team, so I'm actually okay with doing the Lamar Jackson team.
So we could go Lamar Jackson, James Cook, and get this game out of the way and jam in our quarterback.
Yeah, that would be nice. So I think we're going to do that. I think we're going to go. It's official. Lamar Jackson is in, unless the chat wants to interject and go Isaiah Likely. So we'll go James Cook, which leaves out my boy Dalton Kincaid. Breaks my little heart, but we need a running back.
We need a running back.
Yeah. So now
you're wide you're wide open here with Chiefs, but Kelsey sort of becomes play. Now this also opens you up to. Now this basically we have the next question we have to come down to is Laporta. If you want to cram in Laporta,
you could do it.
Then you might not need Kelsey, and you could go a little less chalky.
The problem it didn't answer our Lions question at all. All it did was it pushed it onto the back burner.
It
right?
does.
Like
it did.
Yeah. So I like Kelsey. The thing is with Kelsey, right? People act like he died, right? And the problem, even then though, right? The problem is that he was drafted in the first round. But this guy had the same PPR points per game as TJ Hawkinson. In fact, they had nearly identical stats, right? Like people act like TJ Hawkinson was like this like super mega star, but then he just got hurt. He played the same exact number of games as Travis Kelce. Here, I'll pull the stats up right now. Travis Kelce this year played 15 games, right? 121 targets. We'll go stat by stat. Travis Kelce, 15 games. TJ Hawkinson, 15 games. Travis Kelce targets, 121. TJ Hawkinson, 127. Travis Kelce catches, 93. Hawkinson, 95. It's like there's no difference. Travis Kelce, 984 yards. TJ Hawkinson, 960. Same thing. And 5 touchdowns apiece for the two guys. No carries. 1 fumble loss for each. The difference, Travis Kelce scored 219.4 fantasy points, and TJ Hawkinson scored 219. There's not a huge difference between those two. There's not a huge difference between what Laporta and Engram did in 17 games versus what Kelce did in 15. Those two guys, Kelce and Hawk, led the league at 14.6 fantasy points per game. Like this guy is still capable of monster games, is he not?
No, of course. And I think that in this situation, they're going to lean on him. They're going to attempt to lean on him. And I think the other question becomes, like, do we love Rashee Rice or Isaiah Pacheco enough that we want to pivot away from Kelce in a huge game on the road in Buffalo? And I don't think that we do. I think that, I think we'd be chasing Pacheco a little bit, chasing Rice a little bit, where Kelsey's probably the play. I don't love it. It doesn't feel as dangerous as in previous years. It doesn't feel like a McCaffrey. Like in previous years, if you didn't use Kelsey, you'd feel like you're really like making yourself at risk and kind of opening yourself up. Now it just seems like
people are scared.
A little begrudgingly doing it, but it's still probably the move. I think we go Kelsey, lock it in.
I'm not even. And the plus, he historically, he's played Buffalo 7 times over the last 4 years because they play in the playoffs so often. And the worst game he's had, he had 83 yards. Like, he averages 23 points in PPR against this team. And this is tight end premium. And the earlier this year they played, he had like 14.3 points. Like, I don't know. The Kelsey hate has gone too far. And the thing is, I'm the one that usually tells people don't draft Kelsey. This happens all the time with me where it's like, I will be, I am off a guy. And then next thing you know, I have to be the one defending him. Like, I'm defending Kyle Pitts and Travis Kelsey all of a sudden because like people take it too far. They take it too far. Like, I don't like drafting Kelsey in my own leagues because we do so much research that we feel like we can generate value elsewhere. That doesn't mean he's not the best tight end still.
Yeah. Let's go Kelsey, and that keeps us completely open with our Detroit decision here. Yeah. But let's look at it. So chalk wise, McCaffrey, Evans, Kelsey, Collins, and Lamar are chalky. But James Cook makes us not chalky, and Jaden Reed makes us not chalky. So we're already like I have a differentiating.
The thing with Jaden Reed though is that I'm not sure how many people are going to be on. I think what makes Jaden Reed I don't think there is true chalk in Green Bay. I think the Aaron Jones will probably be most rostered, like you say, but I think it's spread out enough that there's going to be Dubs teams because Dubs had a really good game too, right?
You have the option of going Jones here based on what we've done. If you're going to go Sun God, if you go Sun God, you could go Aaron Jones.
Chat, what do you think? So I don't know. I think I like Reed, man. I think I like Reed.
Reed, feels super dangerous. I mean, if they're going to win this game, you have to think Jaden Reed is a part of it. Aaron Jones, I do think like the floor is safer. But again, we're not chasing floors in this sort of competition.
No,
so it comes down to which Lion do you feel most dangerous about? And also, we're both projecting Detroit to win two games. So we have to project the San Francisco game as well. And San Francisco's been rock solid against the running back position, but a little looser against wide receivers. You could see the Sun God having 2 really good weeks in a row, whereas Gibbs on the road in San Francisco, I don't think his ceiling is as high as in a lot of other places. And Laporta, I don't know. Like, I don't see Laporta coming in and just ripping up the 49ers, especially with – and Coop, we also haven't seen, like, maybe – I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, Laporta, that situation, how he would look. But I do think the Sun God, they're going to lean on both weeks.
Yeah. Based on the research I've seen, courtesy of our friends over at Fantasy Mojo, great folks over there, they provide a lot of the data that we use for historic tournaments here. They have found that if you expect the team to win, you want to have the quarterbacks or the wide receivers. Over the long haul, wide receivers consistently score more points, even when they do lose the final game. That's the problem with running backs, is running backs can have one big game, and the next game when the team's losing, they don't do anything. So, and then in games where one and done games, running backs and tight ends have done well. And then, of course, for the other format, kicker and defense, you want them to lose their first game, right? So if we do expect them to win, it makes a lot of sense to go on Ross St. Brown. And you do have a lot of chalk. Like, you want to have, like, the teams that win do have a lot of chalk. So I think we go that way. I think it's funny that in the chat, we got back-to-back comments from Nick and from Angelo. Reed bounce back game, and then also Reed didn't have any receptions. So I say we get Amon-Ra in there. And that, I think that's the way to go, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel good about this lineup. I mean, this lineup is conducive on Baltimore making the Super Bowl, but we both feel like that's a pretty decent proposition. They're going to have home field advantage. and we protected ourselves with Christian McCaffrey. Again, it doesn't feel like we're that unique, but we are with the Jaden Reed pick and the James Cook pick. I think there's going to be a ton of Josh Allen teams, a ton. I know I like Josh Allen a lot this weekend, but I don't know. I think the team seems fine. The only thing in my head is Aaron Jones, Jaden Reed. Does that catch us? But it's only one game, so it's not going to kill us no matter what.
Right. So I mean, I think this is it. So folks out there, Matt, if you could take down the thing at the bottom there, Matt Deutsch behind the glass today. Shout out to the Better Boss hanging out today. Yeah, there we go. So here's what we got going on. We have quarterback Lamar Jackson, James Cook at running back, Christian McCaffrey at running back, Jaden Reed and Nico Collins as the wide receivers. Our flex plays, we're going with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Mike Evans, and then the Travis Kelce at tight end. It is tight end premium. Folks out there, if you think you can do better, I know folks in the chat already are chomping at the bit to beat us because they think we have a better team. Go to myffpc.com or use that QR code that's right on the screen. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more. Again, Coop at myffpc.com. They have $35 or $200 entries. And this is it. This is probably the last big tournament before the end of fantasy football because there's only a couple games left after this week, only 3 more games. So get in now and get it done and win a bunch of money. So there it is. Theo, got to ask you. I actually want to ask you one more fantasy football question before we go. I look at this Packers team, right? And with all these weapons, man, for Dynasty, what are your thoughts with this? How does the wide receiver group shake out? Like, because they're going to have 2 tight ends too, so they're going to use a lot of 2 tight end sets. If you had to pick 2 out of these 4 wide receivers, and the 4 wide receivers being Watson, Wicks, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed, 2 out of those 4 wide receivers to be full-time players, which 2 would you feel best about? Like if you had to pick 2 of these Packers wide receivers to be your guys in Dynasty, which 2 are you going for? Because there's so much Dontavian Wicks steam, and Jaden Reed's been good, and Christian Watson was the first round pick or second round pick, and Jaden Reed's been awesome. It's a very difficult question all of a sudden.
I think it's Jaden Reed. I'm a Jaden Reed stan, and I think you brought up how Jaden Reed becoming a full-time snaps player in year 2. I think he takes a big step forward. He has a nose for the end zone. All those manufactured touches. I had some pushback because people were think my steam is too much, where he was better in games without Aaron Jones, like we saw last week. But I'm a Jaden Reed guy, and yeah, I like Christian Watson still because we've seen ceiling games out of him. And the thing is, we don't take zeros, Coop. And I think the perception of Christian Watson is he's this guy who can't stay on an NFL field. But when he gets on the NFL field, we've seen him have like 4 or 5 games in his career now where he's getting like 18 or more PPR points. I really like Wicks, though. I think there is a lot of Wicks steam. I think the Wicks bet is kind of an anti-Christian Watson bet where, again, he can't stay on the field and maybe Wicks, develops into kind of what they wanted from there. But I think Reed is actually the safest play here. 2nd round pick. Guys like him have had successful, careers fantasy wise. And I think he's nasty. I think Jaden Reed, eye test for me. I love Jaden Reed.
Exactly, with the design plays and all that. So I'm with you. Same 2 guys for me. And I'll tell you what, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world for Wicks or Romeo Doubs or Bo Melton, as we're seeing from Angelo here, because I watched Antonio Brown sit behind Emmanuel Sanders and Mike Wallace and Antoine Randall and Hines Ward and have 1 catch in the Super Bowl. And then, those other guys went elsewhere and they were good, right? Like Emmanuel Sanders was good for the Broncos, and Mike Wallace was good whenever he felt like playing for like the Dolphins and stuff. So all these guys can be good. I'm just asking for next year. So love that, Theo. Let's get you out of here. Tell everybody what you got going on over at Player Profiler. I know you guys are doing big things, man.
Yeah, so you can find all my written work at playerprofiler.com. You can find me on Player Profiler YouTube. I'm dropping videos in addition to all my podcasts. You can see my episode with Coop from last week. First Class Fantasy and Press Coverage, my 2 redraft shows. I record the Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast with Matt Kelly, the Podfather. And then my new Dynasty show, Dynasty Life, has been actually going very, very well. Love to have you on sometime soon, Coop. Yeah. And then Futurecast, we're talking about the 2024 class. Pretty much every time we drop an episode, that's like a couple times a month. And we are going to be back on Monday evening. So yeah, check us out on Player Profiler.
Boom. Love it, man. You guys always cooking up good stuff. That's going to be it for us, folks. But stay tuned. Coming up right after this is the Better Sports Betting Show with Dan Servadidio and Howard Bender. Get all your bets in. I love that show this time of year because, once baseball's going, you got baseball bets every day, but we have hockey, we have basketball, and we still have football to bet on. So that show's a blast, man. So stay tuned. That's coming up next. Thank you guys for joining us in the chat. Thank you to the better boss, Matt Deutsch, behind the glass today. And that'll be it for us. Have a good weekend and good luck in your FFPC contest, folks.